And also a great twist is that he does a physical and a psychological test, answering questions, looking at pictures and many different videos with all kinds of weird sexual scenarios, torture, etc. They even tell him that there is a small tortoise laying on its back and he isn't helping. And he responds, "What do you mean I'm not helping?" And then they say, "Let's talk about your Okay, sorry. But man, that was a nice orgasm." This was a great twist, and this explains how they can perfectly make the game fit for each person, and it makes them intimidating, and it is also original game as it is planned out so well. And also he's struggling with a businessman in his company who's being difficult, and he's handling it aggressively, which makes sense as he's a hardcore businessman, and he's called saying that he is being rejected for the program, which makes it mysterious what they're up to, and it is logical as they are trying to confuse him. Also original is how methodical the game is, as he finds out a doll on the ground before his eyes, reminding him of his dad who jumped off, and it has a key with CRS on it, and they are filming him, which is of course very smart as they placed a camera in the doll, and they taunt him for his greediness and coldness, and he gets obsessed over how weird the clown is. This makes you wonder whether it might be a joke and if Nicholas is gonna go insane. Especially as no one sees that the TV starts to talk to him, it might also be that they want to make him look insane. This makes them more dangerous, and this makes it very unpredictable what will happen. And that makes sense as it's also a way of manipulating him and making him feel more awkward and unbalanced. And also they give him a number for emergencies which he could use to quit, which is original. That they keep it sane and consensual makes sense as therefore they wouldn't really hurt anyone. And Nicholas becomes more paranoid, and then he gets obsessed to open his briefcase, which he needs to make a deal, but for somehow it won't open, which of course makes sense as it is a way of making him deal with having to be more flexible. And he's very controlling and feels the need to control and understand everything and everyone, and he asks an important board member to step down, and this fits cleverly into the plot and makes you wonder whether he's involved and whether he might want to hurt Nicholas, which would make sense as he of course would be vengeful, and he hurts him though he was a friend of his father, and he's offended thinking that although he was a friend of his father he hurts the company, which makes sense as he's very business centered and doesn't believe in any room for excuses. He's very unforgiving and demanding, but his suitcase won't open to finish the deal. And the key won't work on it either, which shows that they are playing with his expectations, which makes it even more unpredictable. And also when he's waiting at a dinner table, a waiter spills on him, and he stays angry, which makes sense as he's a very cranky person, and she becomes condescending and is fired. And this understandably makes her even more angry, and there's a note that says that he should follow her, making you wonder if she knows of the game. But of course she stays angry and the man falls ill, which makes sense as this is a way of forcing him to go with an ambulance into a different situation, and he's forced to go with him to the hospital where he's left in the dark garage, where he has to work together with the woman he doesn't like. And there the plot becomes even more mysterious. Is she also just lost in this game? And can they get out together? And what are they doing here? And of course this is very suspenseful as they're lost all alone. Also original is that we see them slip away. They aren't just suddenly gone. And they get stuck. Christine manipulates him to go into the elevator all alone, forcing him to be more courageous and free-minded. She says she isn't wearing any underwear, but we later see that she is, so she seems to manipulate him, and then we wonder what she's up to. And when he gets up, he loses his briefcase, and it seems like they make him more flexible. And I like the girl being flexible. Yeah, it's time to do confession. Hold on a moment. I just heard, apparently, as said in the Bible, they can retain sins. And this is the first time in 2,000 years that they did so. Oh. Well, the joke wasn't that bad. It also turns out they were in the CRS headquarters, which shows that they planned all of this, and the alarm goes off. He wants to explain himself, but she convinces him to run, and they are chased by dogs and run into an alley and jump, which makes this a very suspenseful part, because he actually seems to be in danger. And that makes sense, as they just want to force him to be more courageous and brave. And he takes her to his office, and they bond, and she admits to having been bribed to spill on him, but not knowing anything else, falsely making it seem like everything makes sense now, and we know that they were just playing around with him. Then he goes to a hotel room where it is full of cigarettes, coke, porn, and he cuts himself, and the toilet even overflows, making him really scared that someone will see him and that it will get a total mess and people will think badly of him, and this will ruin his reputation, which of course is very important to him, as he is a very strict and pretentious person who tries to keep up a good facade for his business life. So once again they're playing around with his shielding himself off from the world and only caring about officiality. And also he's afraid people will misjudge him, and this makes it seem like they are framing him, which also makes it possible that they are indeed a world cult, or that they're trying to ruin him. And it looks like heaven. I'm condemned to hell anyways, so I should enjoy heaven while I can. And also it gets very suspenseful when he's being followed, and he grabs the man's gun, and it is really loaded. So now it seems really dangerous, but the guy just runs off. And then he questions the man he was gonna fire, who turns out to have accepted the settlement. So he clearly isn't involved with the CRS. So he asks his worried lawyer to find out about CRS, but the letter they gave him was written in invisible ink. This is smart, as it shows how they isolate him, and that his lawyer will find out what he wants to know and what they are planning, and then it turns out that they vandalize his house, which is surprising and original as the game is taken into his own life, and unlike in other stories, his richness isn't just relevant, but in danger. Instead of him having to learn to give up on his money or it not being able to help him, he also really thinks his money is in danger now, and he sees one of the women of the pornographic pictures might be the woman he talked with earlier, so he decides to find out more about her, which creates more mystery of that she might be involved, and it makes sense that he recognized her due to the brows. So yeah, and by the way, I recognized her too. And now I'm not going to the 4th level of hell, but the 5th. But it was a great brother. Yeah. So he meets his brother, who claims they are stalking him, and he continues to pay them more, which makes Nicholas assume he knows that he's being abused, which makes sense as he of course believes his brother. And his brother advises him to flee, but their tire blows and the cell phones don't work, which makes sense as he was driving recklessly and in the middle of nowhere. But his brother finds the keys and assumes he's in league with them, as he has the keys that appears to be logical, and his brother confronts him with the fact that he resents him and that he is a control freak. And they apparently also recorded all of that, which shows that they might be even ruining his relationships, and also nicely sets up that he gets a handle which will allow him to open the window of a car that crashed in the water. So then he takes a taxi, but it is crashed, so he nearly drowns, and he assumes that they are lethal, which makes sense as he nearly drowns. So he gets his lawyer on them. But the taxi is in the water, and the paint and the clown all have little leads, and their headquarters are secret. This makes them really seem like a criminal organization, and it makes them even more menacing, and explains how they didn't get sued. Yeah, that, or they just say that they are comedic reviewers, so they can claim that you shouldn't take anything of them seriously, and therefore they can get away with committing heinous crimes like kidnapping people or threatening with terrorist attacks. Yeah, they're very smart. So he visits Christina, she's evasive, and the house is a set and they are being spied on, which makes sense as they are all setting this up, and this shows that she clearly is up to something and makes her even more suspicious and creates even more unpredictability. And now we think we know what is going on. They're a criminal organization and they're threatening him, and this of course makes it very suspenseful and makes you wonder just how much power they have. And he destroys the camera, but then they appear to shoot at him, so he runs off to his car and they flee. And this is smart and makes sense as they of course are really aggressive, so it fits in the game that they would get violent when somebody openly opposed them, and he could flee as he drove with his car through a tight alley downwards, thereby being very fast and making it difficult to follow him. And he now realizes Christine is in on it, but takes her with him to get answers. You know what I would like to get from her? My pills. I need my anti-hormone pills. They sell very well amongst the Catholic clergy. And Christine tells him that his brother is in on them. I'm in on them, I really need my pills, and says that they were keeping him distracted, and that through handwriting and voice sampling they got his passwords, which with the amount of knowledge they had is logical, and she would have stolen his computer password, which is his main defense, so that was a smart twist, and that explains how they would plunder him, and this makes him very menacing, and it seems to explain what's going on. They are just an organization trying to rob people, so now they would want to kill him as to be rid of him, which is logical as it would remove all evidence. But then he is told that all of his accounts are safe, so Christine tells him that his accountant is in on it as well. And I would like to be in. What is wrong with me? I should just do it, but I'm too much of a scaredy cat. And it's a toy. Mainly that. I think I could do it. Is there anything I can hang myself with here? This might do, but this is kind of complexly. This is kind of a complex knot, so this is gonna take. Oh no, it's fast. I guess I can really do it. Well, here I go. Oh no, I should first finish the review. So she tells him that he's in on it, which makes sense as she tries to make him even more suspicious. And then it turns out that she drugged him, and that with his calling he gave them the remaining info, and they intercepted his calls, which makes sense as they had the technology, and of course the boys him to do all of that. And of course they manipulated him. So he wakes up in a grave, and to get out of Mexico he sells his father's watch, which was a really clever twist, as it made him at a really low point, and then he even hitchhikes. So then he breaks in his own house as it was confiscated, and now wants revenge on CRS, which makes sense as they ruined him entirely. And it turns out this brother had a mental breakdown and was arrested, so now he loses the person he cares of the most. So then he discovers the man he spoke at CRS was an actor, so he finds out where he ate and gets his number and sees him at the zoo. This was a really great twist. He's now vengeful and he's stalking them, and it seems they use actors to trick people, which is smart as that is done a lot with cons anyways. I know. I can't CRS. Yeah, it's actually possible. All you simply have to do is to sell your soul and everything that's good about you. Okay, maybe that isn't that easy. But it was for me! He threatens him, which makes sense as he's hysterical, and he has him help to get in, which is logical as he works there. He also had a hidden gun in the book, which is logical as he's paranoid. I in fact have mine in my sink next to the toilet. Because I actually learned from Pulp Fiction. That film does have deep themes. Like, keep your gun with you when you go to the toilet. And he threatens the guards, making it really dangerous. And there are many actors in series, which cleverly shows how they calm many people. And Christine acts like she's surprised by his gun to make him feel strong, which was clever, because now he really feels like he could kill someone. Because he uses her as a hostage, which makes sense, because that way he can speak to the leads of CRS. But instead the guards go after him and start to break open the door that he locks. And he then holds her a hostage, but they turn out to break through the door as they have strong equipment. She tells him that it's part of the game, but he of course doesn't believe her at this point anymore. And when they're about to get through, he shoots through the door, and it then looks like he killed his brother because they were actually preparing a party, making him feel totally guilty and like he made the biggest mistake ever. They of course pretend like they're all going to jail, and then now having lost it all, he finally jumps off the building like his father. But it turns out that was the whole point, to get him to give up on his fear of death, and is shielding himself off from the world, and his pain over his father's loss, and they had a safety net ready. It was part of the game, and his brother was still alive. They were actually helping him, and they aren't a crazy cult. Well, a little bit, but in a good way. Like Jehovah's Witnesses. I finally got to make a Jehovah's Witness jokes. Out of all the Christians, I'm not gonna hate on them. Because everybody else is already fucking doing it, because they're supposedly different. Don't mind the fact that Calvinists believe in predestination. No, Jehovah's Witnesses are cult-like. Christine is just a helpful actress, and now being grateful, he pays the high bill. He wasn't even robbed, which shows that they're very nice and there's a very optimistic twist. It actually was just a fun game. So now he can freely enjoy life and bond with people, and so he asks Christine who she really is and is willing to go with her on a spontaneous date to really enjoy life. He checks if it might be a game, which is smart as he's cautious, but it seems safe, so he can freely enjoy life as a changed man. Many people have hated on the end twist, but it is original. There was no con, it was part of the game. It was forced exposure therapy. Wait a minute. I hate this movie! Fuck you! Guy with OCD, do you get the joke? Doesn't like forced exposure. Don't force me to stop washing my hands. Or to make a very overly detailed review. Or to talk in detail about all of the Catholic saints. It is smart that they took the game further and made it psychologically helpful. They had everything staged. It shows the fear was in his head. They had a diver ready to get him out of his car, so it clearly was safe. And it also isn't mean-spirited, as the game seems done. It tricks you till you've learned. They did a game to help me with my fear, actually, as well. Yeah, and that's why I hate it. Because I have OCD. So stealing my soap caused me to kill myself. Or did it? Now, actually, it did not. I just had an actual secret weapon hidden in my special basement they didn't know about. And I killed them all. That's why you hear little of CRS anymore. That was after I conned them, in fact. The thought I changed my ways so that CRS could help me become a new person. No. And it's why I'm wanted in many different countries. So people have complained the plot made little sense, but as I explained, I think all the twists were great. Also people have complained the optimistic tone ill-suits Fincher. Why? The film clearly explained Nicholas was caring and not selfish in an overall, and that his brother was also a good friend, and they used to have a bond, and there's nothing they did was permanent. How couldn't the experience change him? And can't Fincher try something new? What's wrong with a director doing something more optimistic? And also it's supposed to be suspenseful and dark till the ending, so that fits Fincher well, and Fincher also often makes films with a lot of love and emotion. He just does it in a more subtle and serious and adult way. Also, someone said that for an after-hours-like film, it played out very early on. Well, your mom played out very early on. I'm going to level 6 of hell. But how they had corporate sabotages and family troubles and stalking and someone nearly dying, the threat of suicide, being lost in a foreign country, framing poisoning. How was it played out early on? It was very multi-layered. Just like your sis level 7, yes. People have complained the stakes aren't high of whether Nicholas will be saved, but his father killed himself and he's a caring person, so he deserves to be saved. And what's wrong with a character drama? And also, it appears to be at stake that whether he won't be killed or not, whether he won't be stalked, and whether he won't be robbed, and whether this will happen to other people. And there's a mystery of what is going on, and whether this happened to other people in general, and whether his brother is going to be sent again. And also the film has a lot of exposition, but it's natural and it fits the intellectual tone. We're explained that the shooting was staged by Christine because she claims to be comforting him when we are told they are robbing him, and uses personal information by Christine when she is tricking him. And also we learned that they spied on him using the clown because they tell him that just to fool with him, and the publisher said that he was retiring because he appreciated the settlement. But there are also a lot of subtleties. Like that his brother took part in the whole game, that they have safeguards in violent situations, and that Christine wasn't really in danger at all. That she also, of course, understood the game and was prepared to deal with the situation. And Nicholas, by acting worthy of his brother, just gives a subtle hint that he's taking part in the game out of guilt.